A remote recording. Abigail's in her closet.
I am once again in my closet. I'm hoping no one can hear my dog sniffing under the door because he's desperate to be let in, but of course, he cannot come in for this.
It adds ambiance. No one has COVID this time. We're just very busy.
Yes, this is a Monday evening recording after we both attended a friend's bachelorette party, so we're recovering still.
I am at my best today.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm 1,000%. This is
I
me
feel
in my
great.
prime. Yeah.
Everything's fine. Today we are not reading a romance novel.
No, we're going to talk about murder instead.
Which is great considering that's what I did all day today. I was talking about murder. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and murder. I performed a murder. No, I do murder related things for a living.
Yes. This is no actual murders committed. Somebody's going to crap out this podcast one day if you're like accused of a crime and use that as your confession. I did a murder today.
Well, I had a hard day.
Katey had a hard day.
I considered doing some crimes. No, I didn't. But we are talking about Goodbye Earl, and we chose this book purely based on the vibes. Like, I can't even give a real reason of like, oh my God, we veered off of romance because it was this like indescribable whatever. Like, no, we were like, we saw this book and we were like, yes, this makes sense.
It's summary. We've got that going for it.
Yeah, it's summary, and so it's written by Leesa Cross-Smith, who I am a huge fan of. I'm a big admirer of hers. I read her book of short stories called So We Can Glow a few years back, and I just really think she has like a really beautiful, lovely, magical writing style. And she adventures around genres so much. Like, I think sometime last year I read like a romance novel that she wrote, and like before that it was short stories, and now it's this like murder thing, and I'm like, she can do anything.
She can do it all. This was my first book of hers, so which it felt like a good one to start with since we both have a long history with the song Goodbye Earl as it is anyway. So
that's true. I think, I say we picked it purely based on the vibes. No, we picked it based on the title.
Yes, that is true. And I mean, the cover's got a piece of pie on it. What more can you ask for?
And the subtitle, it's Goodbye Earl, a revenge novel. I mean, What are we supposed to do?
We gotta take a break from romance and veer into murder. So.
Yeah. This is why I don't read that many thrillers anymore, though, because now that I write and talk about murder a lot for work, I realize that I don't love consuming it in my free time necessarily. When was the last time you read a thriller?
The last thriller that I can think of was when I read Notes on an Execution that you loaned me, which I did really, really love. And it was like kind of a thriller, kind of not a thriller in some ways.
Yeah, thriller adjacent. I think in the same way that this book is thriller adjacent.
Right. And then Wayward that I read earlier this year had some, I mean, mostly it was, magical realism, but it did have some more thriller aspects to it in some ways, just like with witches also. So
yeah, can you bring that over for me?
Yes, I think you'll really like it.
Yeah, because I was thinking about it earlier, and I was like, I don't know Abigail to have read like a thriller, like a very traditional, like Paula Hawkins bestseller list kind of style.
Oh yeah,
thriller. So that's why I was asking.
Yeah, if I have, it's been a long time. I can't think of one right off the top of my head, unless it was like a middle school book club one, perhaps.
Right.
We'll talk about later.
Yeah, I still read them occasionally. Like, I'll listen to the odd thriller audiobook just as sort of like something compelling when I'm sitting in traffic. But I certainly don't read them as much as I used to. I went through a period like in my mid-20s where I was like only reading thrillers
Damn.
for whatever reason. I don't know.
Were you well?
In my mid-20s, no. Just in
Yeah,
general, no, I wasn't well.
not at all.
Not at all. Anyway, do you want to read the blurb or should I read the blurb?
I can read the blurb. Let me go ahead and pull it up. Okay, the blurb. So, the tagline: 4 women take fate into their own hands in this big hearted story of friendship, resilience, and revenge on monstrous men from the award winning author of Half Blown Rose.
Monstrous men. I like that.
Boy, indeed, are they.
Truly.
Taking inspiration from the infamous empowering song Goodbye Earl follows 4 best friends through 2 unforgettable summers, 15 years apart. In 2004, Rosemary, this is where I get to say that I kept calling her Rosemary, but it's Rosemary.
I did the same thing. I
didn't even realize it until I was like putting this together and I was like, I've been calling her Rosemary in my head. It's Rosemary. Anyway, in 2004, Rosemary, Ada, Caroline, and Casey are in their final days of high school and on the precipice of all the things teenagers look forward to when anything in life seems possible. From falling in love to finding their dream jobs to becoming who they were meant to be. In 2019, Casey has returned to her small southern hometown of Goldie for the first time since high school, and she still hasn't told even her closest friends the truth of what really happened that summer after graduation or what made her leave so abruptly without looking back. Now reunited with her friends in Goldie for a wedding, she's determined to focus on the simple joy of being together again. But when she notices troubling signs that one of them might be in danger, she's catapulted back to that fateful summer. This time, Casey refuses to let the worst moments of her past define her. This time, she knows how to protect those she loves at all costs.
So, this blurb makes it sound more thrillery than it is, which I know is the purpose of a blurb, but it does.
Really does. I thought this was going to be a little more salacious than it actually was.
No, same. I thought it was going to be straight up like thriller suspense, when really it's just like very slice of life, very women's fiction, which I hate that label, but it is.
Yes.
Yeah, so because of the dual timeline, we can't really go, because of the dual timeline and because of just like all the random tiny shit that goes down in this book, we can't really do a full play-by-play book club style. But I would like to point out that I love a friend group with a name.
Yes.
and theirs is really dumb, and I love it.
So their friend group name is RAC, which is
all caps.
All their initials. And they say it a lot in the book, which is like endearing at points and also just like, guys, come on. Please.
It was really funny when like the other people were referring to them as that.
Yes.
Like one of the husbands or something would be like, oh yeah, like Rack's going to do this. And I'm like, LOL, that is so funny.
Although we can't say anything because our significant others also call our friend group by our friend group name.
Yes, that is true. I was just thinking that.
We're hypocrites.
So I do love that, mainly because that's the most like 2004 thing I can think of is like coming up with an initialism like that for all of your names.
It's very Parent Trap. It's very American Girl Doll. It's very just like preteen summer. Yeah, it's very much in that
early
genre.
2000s. Yeah. I don't know how you felt as someone who is a millennial Gen Z cusper sort of generational person. Because these women are slightly older than me too. Mm-hmm. Because this was in 2004, but I graduated high school in 2010. So obviously I was not in high school in 2004, but I was like a preteen in 2004. I just ate all the references up like fucking candy in this book. I was so just like thrilled by the chicks of it all constantly, and just the other little random songs or like artists or whatever. Like I felt like the 2000s nostalgia was handled very tastefully and not, cuz sometimes those like pop culture references are so cringy in a book, but I felt like this one, like it was like just little tastes of it here and there that made me be like, "Oh yeah, I remember being like 13 when when I was into that or whatever."
Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff was very universal, and also you may or may not be surprised to hear that 2004 is a year that I remember very clearly. Uh, not possibly, because that year was the year my dad married my stepmom, who was my stepmom for a brief time, but I had an older stepsister, and she was a sophomore in high school in 2004, I think. She was in
Mm.
high school in 2004, and I just thought it was the coolest thing to have an older sister, and all I wanted to be was in high school at that time, and not being 8 years old or however was at that moment. And so there are a lot of, like, 2004 things that I remember very vividly. And then, like, the chicks of it all, like, my mom would play the chicks in the car, like, taking me to swim lessons, like, 2 years
Mhm.
prior. All of that stuff, like, definitely scratched an itch for me, and just, like, the general nostalgia of, being with your friends in the summer and, like, being about to graduate. Like, a lot of that stuff, it felt very timeless. This book felt very
Mhm.
timeless at a lot of points. Yes, there were certain callbacks to the chicks or, like, what they would wear or, whatever they were doing or, and lots of that stuff was very, like, early 2000s, but also it was just like, "Oh, yeah, I graduated high school in 2015." Like, me and my friends were running around the lake and, you know, drinking cheap beer and whatnot. Like, we did all that stuff too. Wow, cool.
Yeah, it was like a universal small town high school experience with like a group of girlfriends. Which I feel like it was captured really, really well in that way. And again, that's one of the reasons I love Leesa Cross-Smith so much, is because she can really paint a beautiful picture, even if there's not something particularly good happening in the book at the moment.
Yeah. So, where we kind of start in the book, which we start at a wedding, which I get really excited about because, I love a wedding. And then they're at the wedding, but there isn't a lot of wedding actually
Yeah.
going on. It's very much like in the background because Ada's little sister is getting married. And that's why Casey is back in town for the first time in 15 years, which a choice. Two of her friends have gotten married since then. Ada and Caroline are married at this point, and Casey didn't come back for either of their weddings. And then Rosemary lives in Seattle. Casey lives in New York. They still keep in touch, but Casey would go to Seattle or they would come see her in New York. She like never came to Goldie. So it's kind of this big deal that she's there. And yeah, there's a big fancy wedding going on and everyone's kind of dealing with some adult stuff now.
Mhm.
Of the friend group, who was the most kind of compelling to you? Like I know who you're supposed to think is the most compelling, of course, and it's, of course Casey who is incredibly compelling on her own, but, like, was she
Mhm.
the one who was most compelling to you?
I think at first I was really drawn to Caroline just because she gets a lot of, like, page time at the beginning. But I also kind of alternatively at different points throughout the book was obviously drawn to the others, but I think Ada and Caroline were the 2 that from the start that really sort of stood out to me, I guess, namely Caroline, because at the beginning I was like, "This girl's a mess."
Yeah.
Which
For reasons we find out. I think at the beginning and kind of throughout the book, like, I wanted to see more of Ada's day-to-day life. Like, I think
Mhm.
she was kind of the one who got almost the least amount of page time in a lot of ways. Like, you kind of get this moment of her dealing with her mom and her
Mhm.
worsening alcoholism and addiction. You kind of get some moments with her and her boys. She's got 4 kids, which fucking wild. And she's married her high school sweetheart, and she's kind of the one who definitely has the most quote unquote put together life.
Mhm.
And so I think a lot of the time we spend with her you almost don't spend it with her necessarily. It's almost like everything else that's going on around her, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I definitely, you kind of like, because I was trying to think when I was like, oh, I was really drawn to Ada, but I don't know why. I think it was exactly that, where I was like interested in her, but we didn't get that much of her.
Yeah.
And I felt very much the same way. And, we didn't really get a lot of Rosemarie until the end, but Ada never really like got her moment.
Ada is also an anxious, controlling girly, so she's in our club,
Yes.
unfortunately.
One of us.
One of us.
Thinking about it though, like you said, like she had the most like quote unquote normal life. The drama that was going on with her, while bad, was not necessarily as bad as the other bad drama in the other girls' lives. So
Right.
it just kind of skated by.
Yes. And yes, I understand why, for sure. Of Ada almost occasionally being the well, I don't even want to say the calming presence because she's not really. She's just the one kind of like keeping everything in line
She's
almost.
the mom friend.
She is the mom friend. She has big mom friend energy. And maybe
Truly.
she's the only mom of the group, but it she has always been the mom friend as we learn through the split timelines. Like even when they were in high school, she was the one like kind of taking care of everyone.
Yeah, and
So
the one who was like, guys, maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe we're doing something that's not very good.
right.
Which is completely my energy.
Yeah. My kind of other friend group that I see a lot recently came to the conclusion that I'm the mom friend, which kind of shocked me. I don't know how I feel about it still, but they were like, "You're the one who's always reminding us to buckle up and stuff like that." I was like, "Well, you should buckle up."
You have to remind them to buckle up.
I could probably like give them a few seconds longer to do it, but but I
That's
would
funny.
like to. I would like them to be faster about it. How about that?
Yeah, that's valid. So you wrote in here that you want to talk about Goldie as a setting, Goldie the town, which I absolutely do, but I would like to bring one thing up, which is that I don't know if this was purposeful, but like Casey Musgraves is from a town called Golden and her name is Casey, and that feels like something that might have been purposeful.
I didn't put that together, even though I've been thinking. I thought about Casey Musgraves like this morning, and then I finished the book like when I got home from the gym. So I feel like I should have put that together, but I didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who knows? But I did think about it the second I saw the town name, and I was like, interesting.
I did Google Goldie to see if it was real after we found out Westport was real,
Right.
and I didn't find anything.
We don't even know where Goldie is, right?
No, and this frustrated me a lot. Okay, so Goldie as a place in general felt very real to me at points where it was like this dusty small town. We know it's in the South. Felt a lot like my hometown in a lot of ways, just like with more lakes, but like, two big high schools, everyone kind of running around together, couple rich families, like solidly rural, southern, middle class, somewhat,
Mm-hmm.
just like those things felt like extremely real to me. But then I never found out what state it was in, and it frustrated me so much. And I know it doesn't matter. I know it doesn't matter. But like books like that where they are in like a southern setting, I'm like, is this Texas? And like sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. So I was really frustrated because I was like, is this my Texas small town or is this a different small town that I have no real concept of? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't really. I'm Googling where Leesa Cross-Smith is from. She is from Kentucky. Could be Kentucky.
It could be Kentucky. I mean, there were definitely things of like a lot of the like cooking in the book
Right.
is very like classic Southern,
Yeah.
not Texas Southern.
I mean, is it ever explicitly said that it's in the South? Do they
It
say that?
said they do say it's in the South,
Okay.
but
Yeah. Because then at one point, when Casey's fiance shows up at the house in his car, I'm like, okay, wait, is it? But I guess we don't know that it's his car. He's just in a car and he could have rented one at the airport or whatever. But that
I
threw
had
me
the
off
same
too because
thought.
I was like, did he drive? Are we like in Connecticut or like Maine or something and not
I
in the
had the same
South?
thought. I mean, they could be in Virginia and he drove from New York. That's not too crazy.
Possible. Yeah. It doesn't matter. But it didn't really bother me because whenever there are gaps like that in a story, I just sort of like fill them in with whatever I want it to be, you know? So in my head it was in Texas.
See, I like cold hard facts. I want someone to tell me where it is. I was also thinking about when we read Dead Romantics, which is set in South Carolina, and like
Mhm.
some of those things felt very similar, and I just like wanted confirmation. Like that was all. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. This is just me grasping for familiarity. That's all it is.
Yeah,
Some
I
semblance
feel
of
you.
control,
I
but
created my own.
that's that's healthier probably.
Yeah,
But
I did. I I found Goldie infuriating in the way that small towns can be infuriating and lovely in the way that small towns can be lovely. And I really liked the way that she wrote the town.
I do too. It felt very real in most ways. I will say, like up at the end, which we'll talk about. I think it gets in some ways maybe a little less believable, but also the the way you wish it always was. It's
Exactly. Yeah. If
optimistic.
things, yes, if things actually went down the way you wanted them to. But I just thought that, for the first, because the book's divided into acts, right? So for the
Hmm.
first two acts, the town is really represented the way that I think many of us who are from small towns think about their towns, which is like, fuck this place, but I love it, but fuck this
Hmm.
place. And like, I don't want to be here, but when I'm not here, I do want to be here. And in a way, like that's kind of what this book is about more than anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. And as somebody who now does not have any family in my like true hometown, small town, like where I went to high school and everything, like my parents have since moved out of there. My dad still lives in the area, but when I go visit him, like I don't go through my old hometown. Like it's kind of weird to read these books where it feels so real and so much like where I grew up, but like it's a place I don't go back to anymore. And it
Hmm.
makes me sad and nostalgic, but I also have a very complicated relationship where, there are a lot of things that like made me really angry about it and like some very unpleasant memories of living there. And so it is, like you said, when you're there, you don't want to be there. And then when you're not there, you do want to be there, especially now that
Hmm.
I live in the big old city and all that. So
Yeah, yeah, it's complicated and I feel like books have a hard time capturing that. Like it's
mhm.
been a long time since I've read a book about a small town that I was like really, really satisfied with the complexities of how it was handled or whatever. And this one did it for me. So
Yeah.
I liked it.
The least believable thing in this small town is that they all lived within 5 minutes of each other because, like, I lived in a small town and all my friends lived in the neighboring small town or the neighboring small, like, we
Hmm.
were all like 30 minutes apart. And so that was the only thing that I was like, how? How is like Caroline's trailer park 5 minutes from Ada's like pink mansion, and then 4 minutes from Casey's farmhouse, and then another 2 minutes from Rosemary's like normal rainbow house. Like it was like, how does that work? That can't be right. Everyone's supposed to
Yeah.
be 45 minutes away from each other.
Yeah. I believed the three girls living close to each other, but there's no fucking way Casey's farmhouse is less than a 10-minute drive on unlit country roads and a gate that you got to get out and open. There's no way.
Absolutely not. Katie has beef with gates.
My nemesis growing up, having to get out and get both gates. It added like 10 minutes onto my ride to school.
Two gates. Two gates.
Yeah,
Count your blessings, everyone. That you
I
don't have to
know.
open gates to go to school.
We couldn't afford a cattle guard, so I had to get out and get the fucking gate. I'm like, Dad, Please. Couldn't afford it.
Well,
couldn't afford it. You got to dig a big hole. It's a lot of work.
Anyway.
Redneck stories from Katey.
Yeah. Anyway, if you had a cattle guard, let us know, and so Katey can be mad at your privilege.
All my rich friends had cattle guards.
Rural privilege.
That's the most insane sentence I've ever said.
All my rich friends had cattle guards.
The thing is, it's true.
I believe you.
Oh, God. Anyway,
so in terms of we'll go through kind of a broad timeline of the stories so we can hit the high points of, the main conflict in this book. So the first 40% of this book is kind of going back and forth. It's very much exposition. It was losing me at points. It was like, all right, when's something gonna happen? There's a lot of talking. There's a lot of reconnecting of friends. I'm not getting a lot of answers on what's going on right now. I'm not getting enough of this wedding, which is a rich person wedding. I want a way more rich person wedding shenanigans, and they're just kind of there. But Rack is kind of like Rack is reconnecting with each other. They're all catching up. People are like they're nice to Casey, but they're also kind of like, what the fuck? You haven't been home, and you missed all these big parts of our life. But ultimately they love her and they kind of let it go. And then they start to notice that Caroline in the group, who is married to Trey Foxberry, which is one of the most southern names I can think of.
True.
Another rich person in the small town who his family owns a bunch of distilleries and makes a bunch of money and, whatever. They also make note that he's not very handsome, which fair.
I know.
This ugly motherfucker.
Yeah.
But they start to notice that Trey, the way he treats Caroline is not right. They don't have anything concrete for a while, but they kind of notice Caroline's always really upset when she's around him. She's crying at the wedding or the night before the wedding and kind of tells Rosemary a little bit of what's going on. And then
they see some text messages too between the two of them that are not great.
Yeah, so they're all kind of a little suspicious. And the day before Casey's supposed to go back to New York, she goes to Caroline's house kind of unannounced and, bringing coffee and breakfast. And through the window, she sees Trey physically abusing Caroline. And she doesn't call, or she doesn't make her presence known. She quietly leaves. And this is something that Casey has experience with because she had a stepdad growing up who was physically abusive to her mom, Angie. And so Casey kind of knows what to do, but leaves, makes plans to meet up with Caroline and everybody else later that night. And then that's when they kind of confront her about what's going on. And Caroline at first kind of brushes it off and is like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then she breaks down into tears and is like, this has been going on for months. I don't know what happened, but it was once we got married, a switch flipped.
Yeah, and we as the audience are sort of finding this out just ahead of the friend group is basically because it's switching perspectives through all the different women. So there are multiple points in the book that the reader knows something that no one else in the friend group does, but then usually the friend group finds out in sort of the next chapter or whatever, which I found really interesting. I thought I was going to get really overwhelmed with that many perspectives, but I felt like it worked really well.
Yeah, this worked well for me, I think. Like you said, kind of you're finding little bits of information out in a very slice of life way. This book is extremely slice of life in both timelines. So the friend group rallies around Caroline and they make plans for her to get out of the house while he's away the next day, to get a restraining order that she's going to file for divorce, very much like the song. And unfortunately, as she's packing, and like massive trigger warning for this book through a lot of it, it's rough at points. You know, Trey comes home and just absolutely beats the shit out of Caroline, and she goes to the hospital in the ICU, like the song, and is in a coma. And there's a lot going on. But the friend group, we see the two timelines kind of come together at this point, where they had decided in 2004 that they were going to kill Casey's stepdad using black-eyed peas.
Using poison black-eyed peas.
Yep,
which
rat poison.
Unbelievable. Because, you know, when you hear that a book is inspired by a song, you never know how far it's going to go. But these little 18-year-olds were like, black-eyed peas.
We love this song. This is a great handbook for murder.
We're going to do it exactly the way they say it in the song.
Yeah, it's going to work great. So
he'll never suspect a thing, considering the song is on country radio 24/7, but okay.
That's a great point. Do you think Roy listened to the Chicks?
They were on the radio.
It's true.
Wait, when did they say the thing, though?
What
when the George Bush thing?
Oh, gosh.
Because I don't think... March 2003, so absolutely not. Roy would not be fucking with the Chicks.
Nope. Fuck no. Absolutely not. Maybe they would be safe. They call him... So, one of my favorite little things of this whole sad situation of Casey's home life is that they just refer to him as dumbass. And so... you know, like, making the best out of a bad situation, because it's truly awful. It's horrible. Casey, like, lives at her friend's house, is just kind of bouncing around when she can't go home, and it's just deeply, deeply, deeply sad. It's awful. But, you know, at the same, these two kind of timelines converge where this friend group decides they're going to kill a man. The first one being Roy in 2004, and the second one being Trey in 2019, while Caroline is in a coma. So the first one is all four of them. The second one is kind of the three of them, because the other complication is that Caroline's pregnant, and at that point it's kind of like something's got to happen, and we're going to take matters into our own hands. So
and Earl had to die.
Earl had to die.
That line is in the book.
Yeah, they refer to both of these men as Earls. Like, no, they're just bad men. They're terrible people.
I genuinely didn't know it was going to be this on the nose. Like, I genuinely didn't know it was just going to be straight up exactly the song, and even referencing the song. Like, this book is so fucking meta.
I feel like in the beginning, as soon as they started like referencing all the Chick songs that they were listening to, I was like, we're going to get black-eyed peas. Earl's got to die. Someone's going to call him Earl. It's going to be great. I'm glad that no one was actually named Earl. That would have been too much. This was just like the perfect amount of like, it's heavy-handed. Like, don't get me wrong, it's heavy-handed, but we pulled back it just in time. We didn't name Trey Earl. So
exactly. Exactly. I loved it. I loved the black-eyed peas.
So I guess let's talk about the two murders kind of separately, talking about Roy first. I think that maybe makes the most sense.
Yeah, so they try to murder Roy. Was it on their graduation night? On graduation night, right?
Yes, because they were at their graduation party. And the plan was that they made this batch of black-eyed peas laced with a shit ton of rat poison, with everything that Casey's mom doesn't like to eat, like onions and just to make sure that she wouldn't eat it. And they planted in the house, and they're all just like anxious, nervous messes, but they're all just kind of like, we gotta do this. We're gonna kill this man.
It was so stressful.
It's so stressful. Can you imagine being 18 and deciding you're gonna kill your friend's stepdad?
Well, and then just leaving it at home, like, without any real knowledge of who was going to eat it.
Oh, that Ada in this part of the book is just, like, sitting there, like, hyperventilating, and I was like, "I'm Ada. This is too
Yeah.
much." Yeah. I I was so terrified that that's how this part was gonna go, that,
Me
like,
too.
Casey's mom was gonna eat the black-eyed peas instead, which is not what happens, it's worse.
We know that Casey's mom is dead in the modern day, but we don't know what happened. And so I think the entire point was that we were supposed to think that they accidentally killed her with the black eyed peas, but thank God, even though it's not good the way it happened, but thank God they didn't do it because, ugh.
Yeah. Imagine God, I don't wanna imagine that. I'm not gonna think about that because that's not what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what happened is I don't know if it's worse, it's terrible. So, Casey, while she's at her graduation party, she had talked to her mom earlier and, like, confirmed her mom wasn't home, so she wasn't going to eat the black-eyed peas. But at some point, she does go home, and Casey gets this kind of panicked call from her mom, who leaves a voicemail with kind of this code word that they had of, if I ever need to get out of a conversation, um, I'll drop the word moon shadow. And she leaves a voicemail saying that in this story about her dad. And so Casey rushes home, and God, it's awful. It's awful.
Yeah.
She finds her mom on the ground and attacks Roy after, Roy beat the shit out of her mom, and Roy beats up Casey. Casey passes out, wakes up, and Roy's passed out drunk on the ground, and she finds her mom has passed away in that meantime and says goodbye and leaves. And that was the last night that Casey spent in Goldie. She kind of disappears the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't the last night. She stuck around for a few more days for the funeral and everything.
Yeah. Roy ends up dumping her mom's body. He gets away with it. And so Casey stays a few days to kind of like witness all of that going down. And then she bounces. So then we're aware of why coming back to Goldie is so complicated for her. Roy never eats the black eyed peas. Casey throws those out later and he gets away with it. We do later find out that he had died of cancer like a year before the modern day parts of the book. So in like 2018. So that motherfucker lived like 14 more years.
That killed me.
Um,
I wanted to find out he had died like 2 years later in a bar fight or
mhm.
something like that, but nope, he did
At
not,
least he's
which
dead.
is he's dead. But it does feel frustratingly realistic.
Yeah.
So,
But then you feel really dissatisfied, but then you realize that they get a second chance. They get to do it right this time.
a second shot at murder.
Yep,
Like,
a
yeah.
second shot at murder. So they decide to kill Trey. And I just need to say that this series of events that they decide to go on to make this murder happen is so elaborate. Like, they're like, let us lace this with LSD and fucking shrooms because Rosemary's parents are hippies and apparently have all these drugs.
They got a lot of drugs. Rosemary's house is where they would go get high as high schoolers, which
Yep,
apparently there was an unlimited supply and no one cared. So,
evidently so.
eh,
So they get all these drugs and then like Casey invites Trey over because Casey has like told Trey before that. Casey was like, I saw what the fuck you did. And Trey's like, oh, I'm not, like, I didn't do that. You didn't, what you saw wasn't what you saw, whatever. And so Casey's like, I'm going to pretend to invite him over to like make amends or whatever. But I'm going to give him these LSD mushroom casserole, whatever the fuck.
okay, it's
And
lasagna. And as I was reading the
oh,
book, I was like,
lasagna. Yeah.
I want this lasagna so fucking bad. Not the laced version, but it's like I just imagined it of being like the lasagna version of truffles and mushrooms and just like cheese cream sauce, and it sounded so fucking good. So,
Ada sounds like a great cook.
oh, it
Um,
sounds amazing.
and then the other piece of it is there was this moment when Trey was like hitting on Casey earlier in the book. So she was like, maybe I can like you know, maybe if there's some underlying like seductive tone here, maybe that'll benefit me. So I was reading this and I was like, oh, there's no way this is going to work. It pretty much goes down exactly the way that they planned it, like more or less, other than the actual murder.
Yeah, like, so the plan was that they were just basically gonna, like, take him to the lake and be like, "Yeah, you can swim." He can't swim. They know he can't
Mm-hmm.
swim, and they were just gonna push this dude while he's fucking tripping balls into the lake and, like, leave him because he can't swim. What ends up having to happen is he, in his drug-induced whatever, he does try to fight back, and he tries to hit Casey, and instead Ada smacks him with a rock, which
Yep.
was satisfying.
What it very much was. And so other than that, it all went pretty much according to plan. He dies. They they don't really suspect foul play at the start, and then they kind of do, and then my favorite part of the book happens, which is Act 3, when Silas, the cop, the part-time cop, who is like actively in love with Casey and would never in real life be allowed to work on this case, but the rules don't apply in Act 3, apparently. So he's interviewing all these people, and it's all like interview transcript style in the book. And it's all these women who are coming forward to just like tell both true things and total made up bullshit
Mm-hmm.
that gets Trey to look bad and gets these women off the hook. And I know this is the least realistic part of the book, but I fucking loved it. I loved every second of it.
Yeah, this part was great, where all of these women are just going to the police station being like, that guy was a fucking piece of shit. And the officers will, like, correct them when they're talking about how he beat Caroline up, and they'll be like, allegedly. And they're like, fuck you, it's not allegedly. You know this. Like, he beat the shit out of her. And it is satisfying in a way that, like, watching all of these women in the town kind of rally around them in a way that they couldn't for Casey, because kind of what turned out of how Roy ended up getting away with it for so long, even though everyone suspected he had killed Casey's mom, or a lot of people did,
Right.
was that he was like a drug mule for the Foxberries.
Okay, I gotta say, this is the part in the book that I was like, you lost me.
I agree. I was very confused by this, of like, it was alluded to early in the book that like Roy used to sell weed or whatever. And then I'm like, why is there a whole quote unquote Southern like cartel for weed? Like, why was Roy, is that how weed dealing works?
I don't know. This part of it was, I was like, you're introducing a layer of complication to this story that doesn't really need to be there. Like finding out at the end that there's been like a whole undercover drug operation this whole time. I was like, I could have done without it. It doesn't have to be that complicated or that big.
Yeah, it's revealed that the Foxberries are like running basically behind the like opioid crisis that's going on in Goldie, and it's a little much, almost in the way of like, yeah, like you said, like Roy could have just been a piece of shit and he was a guy and he could have just gotten away with it because of that. Like,
Right.
Which
Or
is realistic.
The Foxberries could have helped him cover it up for another reason. Like you could still intertwine the two guys if you wanted to, but it doesn't have to be an entire county-wide illegal drug operation.
Right. Yeah, that I was a little lost there, and I kind of like chose to ignore it, honestly, moving forward.
Me too. I was like, this didn't happen.
Yeah, I'm not worried about this. Roy got away with it because he's a dude and cops don't believe women. That's what it is. So that's how I categorized it.
Yeah, I did the same thing. But yeah, I really liked this book. Did you like it?
I did like it. It was very different than what I usually read. It's different than what I've read lately. You know what? Now thinking of it, it does kind of remind me of Wayward in some ways.
Oh, yeah.
Which is its own revenge story told across 3 women who are related, but each in a different timeline. And it is revenge against the men who have wronged them and kind of righting the wrongs that have been done to them in the past. And I'm really interested now to see what you think of Wayward after reading this one. But like I think this one was satisfying in a lot of ways. The end lost me a little bit. It cleaned up a little bit too nicely. Ada's mom going to rehab. Everyone finding their hometown boy. Stuff like that tied up a little too quickly. I believed Silas and Casey. That one made sense to me. Bo and Caroline was a little too neat and tidy, I think.
Yeah, I like that they ended up together, but he kind of just appeared out of nowhere at the end in a way that I was like, where'd you come from?
Yeah, in a way where, you know, when she's like, Bo, will you pretend this baby's yours? And he's like, sure. I'm like, do you want to think about it a little bit harder? Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of a lot. You haven't seen this woman in a while. Like, I know
Yeah.
she's going through it, but like, you know, like maybe think about it for a second. I don't
Think
know,
that one
but
through.
yeah, you know, I mean, we want him to say yes because we want Caroline to be okay, but also like, that's not realistic. What's going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, it was a little neat and tidy. But yeah, I didn't mind it too much. Those thrillers so often end like that where everything just like slots into place and I'm like, all right, fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you say so.
I get it.
Yeah.
Whatever. You know, I do love that everyone gets their happy ending. I guess we got to talk for a second. Rosemary has cancer.
Oh yeah, Rosemary dies. So there's that.
Yeah, that felt a little out of left field too. Act 3 is where it gets a little chaotic, I think. The pacing in this book is a little funky. I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We get a lot of exposition for, you know, 45% of it. Trey dies at 70%, which that's the 50% of this book is when Trey dies.
is when the murder happens.
When the murder happens. And then I was like, I still have a lot of book left. Like, what's gonna happen? Like, I was terrified that he was gonna not die, that he was gonna come back.
Me too. Me too.
I thought he was gonna like wash up on shore the next day with a headache and be like, those girls tried to kill me. Yeah. And then they were gonna have to do it all over again.
Yeah.
But, you know, yeah, it ends up being, you know, the investigation against Trey drops and Rosemary turns out she went back to Goldie to die because she has cancer. And then she is going to die soon at the end. There's that.
You know what I did really love was the exploration of Rosemary's, like, would you call it a polyamorous relationship? I guess so.
I guess so. Yeah.
I really enjoyed reading that and the way that, like, her inner monologue was sort of unpacking her feelings for Leo. Oh my God. It was in my head and then it was gone.
Leah.
Leo, and then, you know, the girl she was dating in high school, and then the woman, Esme, that she was with in the current day. And I thought that was like a really interesting little subplot, just sort of reading her perspective on what she was going through.
I liked that too. It was very simply put. I don't think I've read a character who has multiple relationships with people she cares about equally and loves and it's kind of simply like, when I'm with this person, I'm with this person, meaning mostly Leo. And then she's with Esme most of the time. And, you know, Esme and Leo know about each other. It's nothing shady. It's just Rosemary's kind of, you know, her life. That's how they've made it work. And yeah, it's really nice. I really liked her and Leo's relationship. Leo was my favorite man character of the book.
Agreed. He was my favorite also. I liked him a lot.
He was the one I was like, I'd have a crush on this man. He makes sense. This is he plays guitar. It works.
Yeah. I liked it. Overall, good stuff.
Good stuff. Murder, pie. Revenge,
Female empowerment.
female empowerment,
Friendship.
friendship. What else? Some iconic grandmas, some great old
Great
ladies.
grandmas. Yeah, incredible old ladies in this book. What are you reading currently?
So I think I've mentioned it on this podcast. I'm in a book club focused around books we read in middle school or late elementary school, sometimes turns out. And so right now I'm reading Hatchet by Gary Paulson, which is one I'm really excited. I haven't officially started it. I'm going to start it this evening because I finished this one today. But I'm really excited to revisit this one because one, I loved this book when I read it, and also it like deeply traumatized me. So
Yep.
middle school book club has been really fun in that we realize a lot of the books that we read as children are really fucking sad and kind of
Yep.
put in a less sad package. Island of the Blue Dolphins, traumatizing. What else do we read? Holes, if you unpack it some more, fucked up. Holes was my pick. I love Holes. Anyway. So yeah, I'm reading Hatchet. And I'm also about to do a book lovers reread. It's coming.
Nice.
Katie, what are you reading?
I am very slowly, not for lack of interest, but just because big book, making my way through the Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles, which I've never read any of his books before, but I understand and appreciate that he's very popular. This was my like freebie that I got in Book of the Month because it was like one of the Book of the Year finalists. And it was, I think, the only one I hadn't read that was a Book of the Year finalist. And I was like, fuck it, I'll just like take a gamble. It's historical fiction. It's really good. It's just like slow going. I've been reading it for like almost a month and I am not even halfway through. It's just like dense. I don't know. So I'm reading that. I'm also reading the Disney retelling of The Little Mermaid that I have talked about on the pod called Kiss the Girl by Zoraida Cordova. It remains extremely cute, as I have said about that entire meant to be series. It's very cute. It's very cute. I love it. And then I need my required 20 seconds of saying that I read Fourth Wing and it's fucking great. I got really obsessed with it for like the 3 days that I was reading it, and this is why I can't read books. I can't read series before they're finished because I don't know what the fuck to do with myself until like November or whatever. And it's really good. I've always liked fantasy, but I feel like I've sort of revived my love for fantasy novels in 2023. And it's been a fun journey, just like reading about fucking fairies and dragons and stuff. It's a good time.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're definitely on a fantasy kick with your ACOTAR Fourth Wing journey.
But yeah, I've always read a lot of fantasy. I've loved fantasy since like Harry Potter, obviously, but this is the first time I've read this much of it. You know, I'll read a few fantasy books a year or whatever, but yeah, Sarah J. Maas, she got me just like she did with everyone else.
Yep. Well, we do have our next book picked out, which
Yahoo!
Is back on our romance bullshit, which is why you're all here. But this is a book that we mentioned when we were doing our summer reading roundup that I randomly found on NetGalley, and now I'm gonna make Katie read it with me because it seems ridiculous.
I'm excited. Do you want me to read the blurb?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be unhinged in the best way.
Yes, so this is Mrs. Nash's Ashes by Sarah Adler. And clicking on Sarah Adler on Storygraph, it looks like it's her first book. So that's cool. Okay. The blurb is as follows. Here's the like little subhead thing. A starry-eyed romantic, a cynical writer, and parentheses, the ashes of, close parentheses, an elderly woman take the road trip of a lifetime that just might upend everything they believe about true love. Millicent Watts Cohen, what a name. Millicent Watts Cohen is on a mission. When she promised her elderly best friend that she'd reunite her with the woman she fell in love with nearly 80 years ago, she never imagined that would mean traveling from D.C. to Key West with 3 tablespoons of Mrs. Nash's remains in her backpack. But Millie's determined to give her friend a symbolic happily ever after before it's really too late, and hopefully reassure herself of love's lasting power in the process. She just didn't expect to have a living travel companion. After a computer glitch grounds flights, Millie is forced to catch a ride with this name, Hollis Hollenbeck. Okay. Hollis, what the fuck? Hollis Hollenbeck. An also stranded acquaintance from her ex's MFA program. Hollis certainly does not believe in happily ever afters, symbolic or otherwise, and makes it quite clear that he can't fathom Millie's plan ending well for anyone. But as they contend with peculiar bed and breakfasts, unusual small-town festivals, and deer with a death wish, Millie begins to suspect that her reluctant travel partner might enjoy her company more than he lets on. Because for someone who supposedly doesn't share her views on romance, Hollis sure is becoming invested in the success of their journey. And the closer they get to their destination, the more Millie has to admit that maybe this trip isn't just about Mrs. Nash's love story after all. Maybe it's also about her own.
These names sound like Muppets.
Hollis Hollenbeck, come the fuck on.
That's a Muppet. That's a Muppet.
That's not a real person.
No, of course not. I'm fucking pumped. This sounds unhinged. I can't wait.
You had me at bed and breakfasts, and you also had me at the Ashley Poston blurb.
I remember. I think we noted that last time when we talked about this book. So
yeah,
and it has 4.23 on Goodreads, which is pretty good. It came out May 23rd, so it is out.
Oh, nice. Oh, it is out. Cool.
Yep.
Okay, well then that's a really good Goodreads rating for it already being out.
Yeah. So I got high hopes for Millicent Hollis and our elderly Mrs. Nash and her 3 tablespoons of remains. So
3 tablespoons. Cool. Okay. Well, folks, thanks for hanging with us for a non-romance read. Do y'all want us to do more of these? Because it was fun. Maybe we'll do more.
Yeah, and also, do we like this format more than play-by-play? Do we rather do a higher level discussion of just, big questions of the book? I don't know.
Yeah.
Let us know, too.
Give us feedback.
Yeah, please.
We've been doing this for a year. We can change it up.
Yeah, we make the rules. That's my favorite thing to say is we make the rules.
We do make the rules. It's true.
Yeah.
All right. We will see y'all in 2 weeks for Mrs. Nash's Ashes. Thank you for indulging us for murder and revenge and pie.
Happy reading.